So glad that you've joined us for our teacher talk today. My name is Barbie Tupua, and I got to enjoy 16 Christmases with my elementary class students before I left the elementary classroom to step into the college classroom and into the editor and writer's desk here at Abeka. So as you're joining us today for our teacher talk, if you haven't already registered for the giveaway, you'll want to make sure that you do that. Go right there to Abeka's website and find that link. Get registered for that giveaway. We get to talk today about an important and timely topic. Let's talk today about celebrating Christmas with your students. This is such a wonderful time of the year. It's so busy, but we have to take the time to impress upon our students the importance of this season, as well as to have a chance to love on them during this special time. Hey, do this during our presentation, would you, during our talk? If you have questions, comments, suggestions, build on each other, put those things in the comments section so that we can encourage one another and build off of each other's ideas. You just never know who you might help in that comments section. Make use of it. Have a good conversation. So my friend and fellow teacher is joining me today.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Pinckney, and I am finishing up my 7th year of teaching. I have taught in 3 different schools and also 3 different grades, K4, K5, and 1st grade. And I've had class sizes that range all the way down from 12 all the way up to 40 in those 7 years.
So in the idea of today talking about celebrating the Christmas season with our students, we'll share some ideas today about your classroom parties, in-person parties, virtual parties. We'll talk a little bit about games and other activities, and then just some general ideas of ways that you can end this fall semester and get ready for the spring semester so that your students come back happy to be back with you in January after their vacation. So let's jump in and talk about some things that you can do with your in-person parties. We know that Christmas is going to be different with our students this year than in the past, but what can we do to bring that season alive to them? Do you typically have a Christmas tree in your classroom? Well, I would encourage you, if you usually do, to bring that back out again. Often at this time of year, in my classroom, we would have a decorating party, it seems, like in the afternoon, not an official party, but just a relaxed time in the afternoon where we would decorate the classroom, the chalkboard, the door, the tree. We'd play some Christmas music. I'd have cookies or something for an enjoyable snack. Well, we might not be able to move so freely around the room this school year or to be in groups like that. Maybe that's not a great idea, but we can still have a tree in the classroom, and the students still can have a part in decorating it. If you let them bring in ornaments, maybe 1 or 2 ornaments from home, depending on how big your tree is or how big your class is, they might enjoy putting up those Christmas ornaments for you and getting to have that personal touch on your Christmas tree. I imagine that those students in your classrooms are going to want to put the ornaments where they can see them from their seats, whether your tree is in the front of the classroom or whether they have to turn around and look in the back. So you might find that your tree is decorated lopsided, all the decorations kind of clumped together where all the students can see from their seats. Can you put up with that for a couple of weeks? See if you can just, I know I like my tree to be well balanced and very symmetrical in the decoration, but just put up with it for a couple of weeks. And you know what, if the lack of balance really bothers you, see if you can put your tree in a part of your classroom where you won't be seeing it all day long. Don't put it in the back of the classroom where you're looking at it over the students' heads all day. Maybe you want to put it in the front corner of your classroom where it's kind of out of your line of sight all day long. And that boy, your students will love having a part of decorating the Christmas tree in that little bit of kind of normal that we've really missed out on normalcy this year. So they would like to do that.
Now, I have a Christmas tree in my classroom this year, and before I've had one that was about 6 feet tall, but this year we have limited space because we have desks that are kind of all over the place, and I decided that I didn't want to spend extra money on a new Christmas tree, so I decided I was going to put my 6-foot Christmas tree up on one of our side counters. So our side counter is about 3 feet tall, so with the Christmas tree on top of it, it stands about 9 feet tall. So if your classroom has tall enough ceilings. It just about reaches the top of the ceiling. I had to bend down the top of it to put the tree topper on it. But
so if your students decorate the tree, you will have an unbalanced tree
Yes.
because all those decorations will be on the bottom 1 or 2 feet of the
definitely
tree.
will be.
Empty top
Yep.
of the tree. Put
Yep.
up with it for a couple of weeks.
Oh, yes, yes. But if I were to have my Christmas tree down on the ground, what I would do is I would have them put it up on the tree, or I have given Christmas gifts as ornaments in the past. So then I can decorate them all with that. They get to see it. They think, oh, what is that for? Why do they all look the same? And maybe they might see their name on one of the gifts. And then at the end, during your Christmas party, or at the end when it is, then it kind of helps you undecorate, because all you do is they get to go take one off the tree. I've done in the past both where I've had their name on the Christmas ornament, so they have to find their name, or I have also just had them pick the same. All of them were the same.
Gotcha.
I did a little ornament with the little melted snowman, so I made salt and put all those things in it, and then it was on the tree. So then at the end, all there was is maybe a garland or a ribbon that you would take off, and it really helps at the end to undecorate the tree at the end of the semester, getting ready for that next one.
So a good bit of your cleanup is already done.
Yes.
Nice.
So then all I have to do is take down the tree and put it right in there. So that's always fun to use those ornaments. And again, you can use those as motivation. Like you said, if they had 1 or 2 that I brought in, we could put it on their desk, or we would have another location. And then I would use that as motivation. If they were doing their best, then they could go put it up on the tree. And again, I won't be able to do that this year because my tree's a little bit taller and up where they can't really reach it. But that's always a good way, is motivation. So, let it work for you, that tree that you have. Use it for decoration, use it for motivation, use it for all sorts of different things. They can hang things on it. So that's one activity that you could do. Some other activities that you could do is, I know a lot of times our classrooms are smaller now because of all this space, so you could always just take them outdoors. And taking the activities outdoors will just help, and you can kind of give a little bit more socially distanced outside. You can have an already sectioned off area where everyone's going to be where they need to be, and then it may help with the older students. They kind of know how far apart they need to be from each other to make sure that they are staying where they need to be and be independent in that social distancing. But outdoor activities, you could have relay races, you could have them even up north, maybe if it's colder, you could build a snowman and just have a relay race back and forth, and somebody does one ball of it and then you kind of go
fun.
back and forth. So that would be a fun idea to do outside, and you'd be able to do that for an activity, and that kind of helps you. Or you could take a tree outside. Maybe if you have trees on your school property, you might be able to decorate a tree outside. That would be kind of fun. And of course, you would want to ask your administrator
Sure,
or somebody if that would be an appropriate thing to do. But that's a fun thing that you could do. And any sort of activity, if you make it fun, your students will love it. So the more fun you have with it, and in these times that we've been in, and everything is just kind of, sometimes we don't even feel like we're in the Christmas spirit. So the more fun that we have with it, then the more fun they will, and it gets us into the Christmas spirit a lot more. For inside our classroom, with different parties that you may have, we are going to be doing a traditional in-person Christmas party in our classroom, but there's a lot that goes into making sure that everything is where it needs to be, and making sure that we have everything according to those certain guidelines that we have. And we have a lot of snacks. Christmas parties are notorious for snacks, and those are the best kind of snacks, are the Christmas ones. So there's lots of different things that you can do with those Christmas snacks during these times. I know you were saying that your daughter was not having a regular Christmas party.
Yeah, they're doing a little something every day, every school day from now until the end of school, right before Christmas break. So they will get kind of the equivalent of a party. It's just spread out over a longer period of time. So there's, I think, less movement will be happening around the classroom. No going through a line to get snack food in her classroom.
Right, and so that's a good way, is you can just have one certain treat every day, and then give the students something to look forward to, and they are super excited about coming to school and seeing what treat they're going to have that day. And we have asked in our class not to have any homemade snacks, and everything needs to be individually wrapped and prepackaged or from a store in its original container. Now that does pose a little bit more prep on our parts, but we can still make it fun. We can buy the Christmas plates, you can buy the Christmas Ziploc bags, you can buy the Christmas napkins and all those different accoutrements, and then you can pre-pack that before. You can even make a little assembly line, and the day before or a couple days as they bring it in, to limit the active germs that may be on them, just putting them in there. And then on the day, then the students get this plate of prepackaged food with prepackaged food inside, and then they just get to eat it all. And
so they may go through a line to get their bag of food, but it's one line, one grab. So they're not touching a lot of things.
Exactly.
Got it.
And you could even just put it on, if you have the room, you as the teacher just put them all out, and then I have, a grade book number for all of my students. So then I would just have them go in order. Then they would be able to do that. And the older the student, the easier it'll be for them to be able to do it independently and less work for you. And you can even have some of your older students, if they're in junior high or high school, they could help prepare those. And you could always just have them wear gloves or anything like that to kind of help it as well, and use lots of sanitizer.
So the food is always a big part of a Christmas party, but there's always that idea of a gift exchange in a Christmas party. How are you handling that this year?
We are going to do a traditional Christmas exchange.
Hooray for the normalcy of that.
Yes,
I like it.
yes. I definitely love it being normal, and it's what they like. I always have I've had students, everybody gets their gift, and then I have a countdown. And when they get to 1, all of a sudden everybody rips open their Christmas packages. And it is so exciting. And a lot of times it's fun because I don't notice you looking at your own gift. You're excited about your gift, but they're also looking at who got their gift, and they want to see the excitement on their friend's face.
That's so
and
sweet.
so if you're able to do that even on a virtual, you could have them however you were able to do that, you could have them, spotlight them, and then each one get to open their gift on it. And so we're going to do that. We always have them turn their gifts in a few days in advance, and then that also helps with the live germs that are on the packaging. But there's always a question of, where do all of the things go? A lot of them may have a backpack, they may not have a backpack, but a good idea is to use a bag. And I've used this bag multiple times before, and so we just get a brown paper bag. You might be able to even ask a grocery store if they have any extra ones, and handles are definitely helpful for them to do that. And we just decorate it. I line them all up, and I just slap that paint on it. It doesn't even have to look all that pretty, because they will.
Well, it looks rustic and cute.
It
doesn't
does.
It?
So we just slap the paint on it. It doesn't take long to dry, and then you can get one of those little sponge paint brushes and just paint on those. I have typed these up, so then it's easier to just every year just write in their name, write in their room, and then they could have that, and then they have it, and even if they're older, they can decorate it. If you have enough paintbrushes, if you have enough paint, it could be an activity. Everybody gets their own little cup or whatever of paint, and then they can do it themselves. So number 1, it's a craft that you could do with your students, and number 2, it's an easy way to have them tow all of their things that last day.
So their gifts from the gift exchange can go in there.
Yep,
Their
it's big
leftovers
enough.
of the snack bag that they've got, everything goes right in that one bag, and they have one thing to carry.
Yes, and then
Nice.
if I give them a gift, then that would go in there as
Do you
well.
know how much the bus drivers must appreciate that they don't have all loose things falling all over the buses? That's so wonderful. What about if we were not able to be in a classroom? If your situation is that you're already virtual, you're already remote teaching, how can you bring the party to to the class then? Well, let's talk about some ideas for a virtual Christmas party. So if I were to celebrate Christmas with my students virtually, I would want to do it during the regular meeting time. School hours, whatever your meeting time is with your students, plan to have that party during one of those regular times so that the parents and the students aren't trying to adjust their schedule to make room for another separate meeting time. If I were you, I would announce that a week in advance, at least, to the parents by email, to the students by way of your regular virtual meeting, and let them know that they can wear their Christmas clothes to that party. Even though they're just sitting in their living room or their dining room, they can dress for that party as well. Something else that you might want to let the students know about is what you're going to do during that party. So you can let them know, hey, we're going to talk about our favorite Christmas memories or traditions, a favorite decoration or a favorite Christmas gift. The Lord has given us gifts this year. What can you, ask your students, what can you thank the Lord for? What has He done for you this year? Or even ask them to share who has been a blessing to you this year. Their presence in your life is a gift, that kind of thing. And then so your students know kind of what to expect during that virtual party. The last thing you want is to ask a really great question about traditions or about how has the Lord blessed you, and to have nobody answer because they're just all thinking about it and they can't come up with it on the top of their head. So let them know in advance, and they can be thinking about those things ahead of time.
Another good idea would be to, if you have that, what they're thankful for, what God has done for them, you could write it on little slips of paper, and then you could write it down. And then when they see it, it's another visual for the students to see, even on the virtual, that this is what God has done for our classroom this year. And look at all these things, even though it may seem like some things are hard and difficult, but look at what God has done. And so it's another easy way to visualize that God really has done a lot of good things.
That's a great idea. Maybe, I don't know how this would work, but you might want to try this if you're having a virtual party this year. What about a sing-along with some Christmas songs? Most of the time when you're having your students share, you want to unmute them one at a time. But what if you programmed your CD player for your Christmas songs, and you hit play on the CD player and unmuted everybody all at the same time, and you just sang with your class, even over that video connection? I'm not sure, because of the internet speed and whatever, not everybody's voice is going to line up on tempo, but it might be a mess, but it'll be a good memory to have.
Of course.
So that's one time when everybody's unmuted all at the same time. Otherwise, you want to keep your students muted and unmute them just one at a time to help them have their turn to talk. And during those times, it might help you to have, maybe you already know this because you're seasoned at this point of doing virtual meetings with your students, have a list of all of your students. And then when each one has their turn to talk, put a little check mark by their names so that you can keep track of who haven't I called on, who's going to feel left out, or who's dominating, and we just need to give other people a turn every once in a while.
I've done that. I've forgotten to do something for a student, so then the parent was there and texted really fast, so then I was able to put them in there. But I think if I had a class list, it would have been a lot easier and it would not have missed it. The student didn't even notice, but the parent did, so I'm glad that parents are more helpful than we think in making sure we do what we need to do.
So we've talked so far about some things that you can do for your Christmas party, whether it's in person in your classroom, whether it's a one-time event or spread over several days. And we've talked about some things that you can incorporate into your virtual party. Let's talk about some games that you can play. And before I get into those games, I do want to remind you, for those of you that are just joining us, we do have a giveaway going on. You won't want to miss that giveaway. Get yourself registered so that you can have your chance to win that $100 gift card, and we'll reveal that winner at the end of our talk today. Now, let's dive into some of those games and think about that. So you want to have some activities in your classroom that could be competitive, or that are, maybe they don't have a winner and loser, but they're just fun game types of things. These are things that you might use as motivations or just fun things to do with your students at this time of year. What about building a marshmallow snowman? Get those big puffy marshmallows, and maybe you want some of the little ones too. Some pretzel sticks, maybe those pull and peel Twizzler kinds of candies might make a good scarf for your snowman. Hershey's Kisses or something else like that. Maybe an Oreo cookie to help with making a hat, just to kind of build your snowman. Now, when I was in the elementary classroom, COVID was nothing that we'd ever heard of before. So I made use of my side counter as an assembly line area for activities and games like this. I suppose you'd have to think outside of the box. Now, maybe you won't have room, or you wouldn't want your students wandering around. And so you might have to think a little bit creatively about how to accomplish that. I just thought of this just now, and I suppose it's a good time to share it. I work with college students now, and I have encouraged them this semester, especially, that when they have their students get up and move around the room, that they get in a habit of having their students get a little squirt of hand sanitizer, either before they go to the board or on their way back to their seat, something along those lines, so that we can maybe reduce the germ transfer that might happen at this time of year. So if you're having your students move around the room for any kind of game or activity, you might consider that. I think probably
my students just kind of put their hands up, and they know that they
you're
need some
experts
sanitizer.
at that. You're experts.
They have been trained well.
So building a snowman out of marshmallows, that's one thing that you could do. Stephanie, what about some other kinds of games, maybe competitions that students could take part in?
Oh, students love the competition. If you could give them a winner, they are going to do their best to try to win. So a good way is to do a Christmas tree on the board. So you could either make it out of construction paper, just a big one, or really you could just get some green chalk and put that green chalk right on your chalkboard, or if you have the green markers, depending on what kind of board you have. And I know a lot of times, sometimes with virtual, you can also do a whiteboard. You can share a whiteboard. So that's another way you could do. So you could do this virtually or in person. And what you could do is they could put different decorations on it. If you are in person, you could have them do stickers, you can do a marker, you can have different chalk. You could put magnets on the back of maybe just different cutouts and all sorts of different things. Let your imagination run wild. Or online, if there's different ways, they could use different colors or make little circles or things like that. And then have them go back and forth. So if the boys win, you could have a boy one and a girl one. So definitely using that would be a fun. And then if you're doing it virtually, you could either screenshot it and send it to somebody that not labeled, not saying that it is not saying this is the boy one, this is the girl one, but making sure that it is anonymous, and you can have another teacher judge, and then you would get the winner that way. And if you have another one, you could take a picture of it and send it to a friend or something like that. Just lots of different things that you could do with that. You could, for the winners, you could have either mini candy canes, and if they're bigger candy canes, you could have them on your tree. So you could just have a bunch of candy canes on your tree, and then for motivation, they could just go get a candy cane and eat it at home or at the end of the day or during lunch or something like that. Or you could do a scratch and sniff sticker. They have lots of Christmas ones. And so let your imagination run wild with those and the different fun things that you could do for that. Another fun one for maybe the older students is have them, it's kind of like a drawing contest. So they would have a little bit more of a twist with it, where they would take the paper and they kind of put it on top of their head, and they are told that they need to draw a square. So the student draws a square, they don't get to take it off their head, and then you have to draw a triangle on the top. So then you either tell them that they are drawing a gingerbread house or drawing a snowman. Some of your older ones might start to understand what it is that you're doing, but you could have them do a drawing contest and then have maybe another student, a lot of times it may be pretty easy to tell who won if it actually looks like a gingerbread house, and it might just look like a different one. Or you could have to involve more students, you might be able to have everybody do the same one or pass it from paper to paper.
Ooh.
Of course, with probably getting a sanitizer in between. So you might be able to laminate something and then use a dry erase marker.
Fun.
And then that would be a little bit easier to clean in between uses. So that's a fun way to do a drawing contest, or all sorts of, you can have a coloring contest or anything that just, your students and give them options. A lot of times I say, hey, let's do this. Do we want to do this or do we want to do this? Because they're going to have more fun if
they have some say.
If they have some say in it. So, of course, give your students some say in things that you can give them say
Right.
in.
You don't do that in phonics class.
No, of course not. Of course not.
But maybe when it's time to draw something fun at the end of the day, that's a good time to let them have some autonomy and make some
Exactly.
choices. Yeah, that's a great idea. So something that I've done in my classroom in upper elementary, and I know that lots of grades employ this, is to have a snowball fight where you might have a little paper bag, not the big one like you've got for your party thing, but maybe just a little lunch sack size, maybe tape it to the side of each student's desk, and over the course of the day they can earn cotton balls that they'll just stick in their bag, and then toward the end of the day they can have a snowball fight in the classroom. Now that's really exciting for our students here in Pensacola, Florida, because we don't get to have actual snowball fights. So maybe you in the north, maybe your students wouldn't be crazy about that, I don't know, but our students here go for that kind of thing.
Wouldn't be wet.
Say that
In the north, it won't be wet, it won't be
That's true,
cold,
that's
so
true.
they might like it.
No gloves or hats needed.
Right, exactly.
So you probably would want to set some parameters for movement about where the students can go. And Stephanie, my son Cyrus is in Stephanie's class this year, and he's doing a great job with her. But I have to say that every one of his major injuries that he's ever had have happened at school.
Oh, no.
Stephanie has seen puddles of blood from my child this school year. We thought he broke his nose in her classroom this year. Praise the Lord, his nose wasn't broken. But he's in first grade. In K5, he broke his finger on the playground. And in K4, he was having a snowball fight with cotton balls in his classroom right before Christmas break. And he got carried away, as he tends to do. He's very creative and energetic and doesn't always know his boundaries. And he fell and hit the edge of the table in his classroom and gashed open the side of his head. He had to have stitches from that snowball fight. So
He mentioned that today, actually.
did he?
Yeah.
Don't do what Cyrus did. Make sure your students know their boundaries for movement, and then watch them carefully so that you don't have a Cyrus incident in your classroom. We don't want that to happen. So let's see, we've talked about parties, we've talked about some games. Let's think about some activities that are maybe not winner and loser kind of games, not competition related, but just some other fun things that you can do with your students at this time of year. One of those Christmas activities is to take a penmanship or a writing time and write some Christmas letters or Christmas cards to some missionaries. Maybe your school or your class has a missionary that you pray for regularly. This would be a great time to touch base with them. You want to get going on this project. If this is a good idea for you, you want to get going on it sooner rather than later, so that the mail has time to make it to that missionary of choice before Christmas time. Another thing you might do, and this could depend on the size of your class, you might want to think about making a nativity scene together. You can use, I've looked this up on Pinterest and other crafting sites, and you can find instructions for making a nativity scene just out of dowels, little pieces, a little round sticks of wood, and maybe some squares and little balls, and it's very few pieces, but it comes together so cutely. So if you have a smaller class, maybe every person in the class could make a separate piece of that nativity scene, and when it's time to go on Christmas break, they can take it with them. And it's only part of the story, right? But they might get asked what that thing is that they have, and they can fill in the blanks of that story. And that little Christmas craft that took up some time in your afternoon could become a way for your students to share the good news of the Christmas story with their friends, their family. If you have a larger class, maybe you would make the main part of the nativity scene and let them make sheep or camels or something like that. You can make a sheep or a camel with 2 small pieces. It doesn't take much at all. And then again, they can take that with them, have that little memory, and then also just a little possibly a window into being able to share the good news about the birth of Jesus with others. Something else that you might do that would be a fun activity is similar to doing the letters or cards for missionaries, what about cards for residents of nursing homes? Maybe you could brighten a nursing home resident's day by being able to provide them with a Christmas greeting signed by a student in your class. Before you jump in on that activity, you'd want to get in touch with a nursing home and make sure that they can accept things along those lines. They may be reducing the amount of package movement, I don't know, because of germ transfer. So just check with them to make sure. And if you have 20 students in your class, you could brighten the day of 20 residents of a nursing home easily. So those are a few activities. What are some other activities that we could do, Stephanie?
Some ones that are more virtual is there are first responders. There are a lot of people who are around. There are people in nursing or in hospitals. There are all sorts of people. So you could get in touch with your local fire department or your local nurse. Maybe you have a student in your class who has a mom who is a nurse or a dad or somebody who works in a hospital, and you might be able to, while they are working, you might be able to set up a little conference and the students can carol to them. You can practice it before, and this time it would go a lot better than unmuting everybody because everybody would be maybe in one spot if it's live. So you would be able to do that, and you could sing a couple songs. Just have 2 or 3, not wanting to take up too much time of somebody's busy day if they're at work, but contact your fire department. I'm sure they would love it to have either the littles singing or some of the older students. And so that would be a really fun way, and it would be a blessing to both, I think, the students and the people who are being caroled to. You could also do another idea as directed drawing. You could do that, but make it into a card. So you could have them make their cards for grandparents. Maybe they're not traveling. A lot of families are unfortunately not able to spend time with their families, so you could ask them if they want to send a card to one of their loved ones that they're not able to see. And so you could always do that and use it as a card. Any sort of directed drawing, a snowman, you could do a Christmas tree, you could do a stocking, you could do just a winter scene maybe for the older students. You could do all sorts of different ideas. I'm sure you could just type it into any search engine and find Christmas directed drawing, and then you would be able to do that and just make it into a card. You could also, a lot of times with getting closer to Christmas in anticipation, a lot of times we have different sort of advents and counting down, any sort of countdown. Now I know with ours, we don't have as many days of school as we do days until Christmas. So on Mondays or Fridays, you could do 2 days each. So that way you kind of keep up for the weekends, and you could do that. I've seen where there's all of the chapters in the Bible, so or in the Christmas story. So you could read a chapter in each one. For your older students, you could have all of them read a verse and go through. So then you're doing that as an activity. That can be done in person or virtual very easily. And you would be able to do that. And then by the time it's time to go home for Christmas, then you've read the Christmas story in its entirety. So that's a really good idea too.
For the older students, you could even have them, I'm thinking maybe even second grade and up, you could have them, give them 5 minutes of the day and have them read the chapter on their own, and then ask a question of them, and instill in them a little bit, or at least offer them the opportunity to build a habit of reading the Bible for themselves. Not necessarily for a group activity, not for academic purposes, just to get in that good habit of reading the Bible. So yeah,
and 5 minutes isn't that long of a time. So you could do it in the morning. You could always do it just at maybe during lunch, a break time if they're ready, and then you could ask the questions. Some of your students may be able to read all of it within those 5 minutes, and then you could ask them the questions toward the end of the section. And one of our viewers had said that they like to write a letter to the staff member, and the staff member, a lot of times they are not able to come into our classroom for the parties. So with the party, we can send them the principal, the nurse, the janitor, the lunch lady, all the people who are not in a classroom in a school. So that's a really good idea to do that for either writing a letter, make a card. You can give them maybe a couple extra snacks if you have those. So that's a really good idea to help them.
Thank you for mentioning that some of the jobs around the school tend to be a little bit on the thankless side, and so this is a great opportunity to show them that they really are appreciated.
Yes.
And to have that come from the student would really mean a lot. Thank you for sharing that idea.
And also for another activity that you could do in the classroom, or you might be able to do it virtually too. You would just have to do a little bit more planning if you have fewer students, or you'd have to contact the parents. But you could buy individual sugar cookies and have just a little baggie of frosting, and then they could decorate the cookie. You could just have small amounts of sprinkles that they put on it. You could have different shapes of cookies. I'm sure maybe they sell them. I'm sure they sell
maybe gingerbread.
Right, just gingerbread and all sorts of different ones. And then you could make it a contest too. Everything can be a contest at school. You can have, the best everything. So it's easy to get them excited about it. So that's another way. And then at the end, you don't have to take anything home because they just eat it right there. And that's another activity is they can decorate the cookie, they can have the contest, and they take it home because they eat it. So that's always helpful too. Good cleanup.
So we've talked about parties in class and virtually. We've talked about activities. We've talked about games. I always like to give my students a gift at this time of year. What have you done in the past, Stephanie? Will it work for you this year?
A lot of times I have done an ornament, so I've made that melted snowman ornament and I put it on, and I'd seen a comment that somebody else also, one of our viewers had said that she likes to use ornaments for the students, so that's again an easy way to undecorate and they get to take it off. And then you can also measure how tall your students are, make a ribbon and put it inside the ornament for the parent, and you could maybe write their name on the front, maybe do some fingerprints or make it look like Christmas lights around the outside. So you could do that and then have a little poem that goes with it that says, this is how tall I was in 6th grade. 6th grade maybe, I'm not sure if they would like that. I think
K5, boy, K5 would be a great year
right
for that
the
to
younger
happen.
students that would work. A lot of times I've just done ornaments, so that would be an easy way to you could still do an ornament this year.
So I used to spend a lot of money on Christmas gifts, and I finally got to the point where I said, I can't keep doing this. I'm going to go bankrupt.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So one year I decided, you know what? I'm going to give my students a pencil and a pen and a candy cane and
perfect.
Homework pass. And I spent next to nothing. And don't you know, they loved that gift. I was thanked profusely. And then I knew at least for one day we would have a pen and pencil to get through the day. And that homework pass got put to good use. And I suppose if I were in the elementary classroom this year, I might do the same thing. And if I were in a virtual situation, I could at least give them that homework pass. And that of the things that I gave them, that's what they were really thankful for. Cost me next to nothing. I did put some parameters on when they could use it and when they couldn't, like they couldn't use it the night before a test.
Of course.
So, whatever homework is preparing them for a test the next day, that's a no-go. But, that's a really inexpensive gift that your students, it doesn't take up much space. It's fast to put together. I would stamp it with a fun little Christmas stamp to make it decorative after printing it in black and white off of the printer. So really so cheap, so easy, and they really enjoyed it. And I could do that this year too whether I were in person or whether I were having a virtual class. So let's move away from some Christmas specific ideas and just think about the fact that we're drawing an end to the semester. We'll take a break and then we'll come back in January, and we want to end well so that we're happy to come back together in January. Stephanie, what are some things that you think of to help you end the semester well?
Definitely cleaning. I have a lot of my students I'll just give them a wipe of some sort, whether it be, of course it wasn't anything that's super loaded with chemicals or anything like that, but even if it's a baby wipe, and then they can kind of get the scrub off if it is a lot of dirt, then it would be easy to do that. And they can kind of do that. They have fun. They kind of go to town. They scrub all over their desks. They do the boards. They do the baseboards. They are all super happy to do the cleaning. And then the last day, I also will undecorate for Christmas. That way it is all done by the time I get up. I put up my January boards and I get it all ready to go. And having the ornaments being undecorated as we go throughout the Christmas season, then it's easier for me to just unattach my tree, put it in the box, and it goes in, and then change my bulletin boards, take down the Christmas lights, and those kind of things. And it's a lot easier. And then the deep clean. A lot of times you can just put any sort of solvent on there, leave it for a little bit while you're taking down the tree, and then it's been sitting there for a little bit, and then you can deep clean it and then go over it again with some more disinfectant spray, and then again with some more disinfectant spray. And so that's a good way. And then, of course, making sure you can either take down Christmas at the very end and put up all of your January boards, or you could leave up Christmas. That way they're excited to come back. They want to see it. It reminds them that this is all the fun that we had. Or you could put up a January board and then they think, I kind of want to come back and see what this is. So then that's another way to kind of tease them into coming back. That way they've been on break for, 2 weeks. They've been in their PJs the whole time. They've been having a lot of fun in the snow with family. So give them something to look forward to as they're coming back to school.
I know that in the past when I would change my bulletin boards in my classroom, I would watch the students come in the classroom the next day and they'd walk in 2 steps in the door and just look around and take in all the new boards before moving on to their seat. Yep. So they like to take in those new things. So maybe you would want to think about putting up a new bulletin board for January, but maybe cover part of it.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Maybe, don't peak until 2021 or something like that. And let them wait and see what's going to come up on that board. And I think you could do that kind of thing no matter your grade level. I mean, the littles wouldn't be able to read what your don't peak message. So maybe that would be lost on them. But all the way up through high school, if you have you can give them a little teaser about what's going to come. You could even give them that teaser in a subject and tell them, when we come back from Christmas break, we're going to talk about this important type of story that Jesus used to tell, where he would give an earthly story that made sense to the people that he was talking to, but there was a heavenly meaning. We'll start those stories when we come back in the new year in our Bible class. And you know what? The very first story like that is about you. You want to know what part you play in that story? Come back to school in January and get them something a little bit to be excited about for coming back to school. And then, and this is also something that you can do no matter what grade you teach. Consider dropping them a postcard over the holiday. Just something simple that says, "Dear Alia, I'm thinking of you. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Love, Mrs. Tapua." And, after the first week of vacation, stick those in the mailbox. Let the students know that you're thinking of them over the holiday. Wow, we've talked about a lot today. We've talked about Christmas parties in the classroom and online. We've talked about games, more competition-related things. We've talked about activities that maybe you could use in ways to be blessings to other people. You've been involved, teachers, joining us here in the Teacher Talk table in the comments section, and how much we appreciate the way that you go back and forth and build on each other's ideas there. And it looks like we just have one more important element of our time together that we want to talk about, and that is, I know you've been waiting for it, it's that giveaway. We get to tell you now who is the winner of our $100 gift card.
The winner of our $100 gift card is Carmen Guzman.
Congratulations, Carmen.
Yes, congratulations. That will probably be helpful around Christmas time.
You bet.
Get
Merry
yourself
Christmas
something
to
nice.
you. Right. Right. Carmen, you can watch for an email from Abeka. We'll get your information there so that we can get that gift card to you. We've so enjoyed the time that we've spent together with you here at the Teacher Talk table. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join that Abeka Christian School Teachers Facebook group. And I hope you have a great evening and a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.